Hello, and welcome to Real Cheating Story. Adam Spicer was sitting on his deck with his morning coffee, watching the sunrise when a flash, like the reflection off a mirror, caught his eye. There shouldn't be anything down there, especially at this time of morning. He unfolded his 6-foot frame out of the rocker recliner and whistled for Teddy, his big hound. Together, they headed down toward the creek on his property, where Adam had seen the flash. Teddy, a big mixed-breed hound about the size of a German shepherd, but with a shaggy brown and black coat, looked a lot bigger and more ferocious than he really was. Teddy ran ahead down the trail, not really knowing where they were headed. They were just going for a walk. As they walked, Adam spotted her, a young woman with a large camera on a tripod. The flash he had seen was the sun reflecting off the camera's lens. He watched her for a moment before heading down the bank toward where she had set up. Teddy, meanwhile, was off chasing something in the distance. "Miss, you know you're on private property?" Adam called out. She jumped and almost fell into the creek at the sound of his voice. He quickly reached out to catch her before that happened. She wasn't as young as he had first thought, but she was still very pretty, aside from a large bruise on her cheekbone. It looked like she'd been hit hard. "Jesus, you almost gave me a heart attack," she said once she had settled herself, her breath still shaky from nearly falling. "Like I said, you know this is private property," Adam continued. "Yes, but this is so gorgeous. I just had to get a photo. The sun coming up gives just the right angle. I couldn't help myself," she explained. He waited for her to continue. After a pause, she did. "I'm a photographer, a professional. I take landscapes and others and sell them. I also do family and wedding photos, but landscape is my favorite." "Okay, but you didn't really answer my question. Do you know you're on private land?" "Yes," she replied. "I saw the sign when I climbed over the fence and walked down from the road. You can see my car parked up there." She waved toward the road. "It's a white mid-size car." Adam glanced toward the road and saw the car parked at the edge of the property. "So, from that, I'm to take it that you can read?" he asked. She nodded, and he added, "And what does the phrase private property, no trespassing mean to you?" Her expression softened, and she apologized. "Look, I'm sorry. I should have gotten permission, but I just had to capture the sunrise. It took me longer to find this spot and set up than I expected. They'll pack up and leave now." "Okay, if you want." "Did you get the shot?" he asked. "Get what?" "The photo you wanted." "Oh, I think so. I haven't gone through them yet, but I'll get going now." Just then, Teddy made his entrance. When you see a dog that big running out of the bushes toward you, it does tend to make you jump. She screamed in surprise, but Teddy, uninterested in the drama, ran past them and jumped into the creek to splash around. Afterward, he came back out and shook water off his thick fur coat, sending droplets everywhere, on Adam and the woman. "Teddy, damn you. I've told you 100 times, don't do that. Don't you ever listen?" Adam laughed at him. Teddy was actually a big goofball, though very protective of his property and the people in his pack. If he perceived a threat, he would act, but obviously, he didn't see the woman as much of a threat. Teddy lay down at Adam's feet and grinned up at him, as if to say, "Didn't I do good? Huh?" Adam owned this particular part of the land they were standing on, along with 25 more acres of it. It wasn't a farm, but the land around the house had been left largely undisturbed for years. He landscaped only a minimal amount around his large ranch-style home, mainly for hosting the occasional barbecue or party. Adam worked as a computer consultant, designing networks for businesses, and had an office in Melville, the nearest large town, though he worked from home quite a bit. He wasn't married, and he wasn't looking for anything serious after several failed relationships. He wasn't eager to risk getting hurt again. Teddy shook off the excess water onto them, and as Adam started laughing, the woman tried to act outraged but ended up laughing as well. "You sure have him trained," she laughed, wiping water off her face. Then her voice changed to one of alarm. "Oh my God, the camera." She quickly went over to where she had set it up and checked it. No harm done, just a few drops on the case. She was still giggling. "I take it you own this land?" she asked. "I do," Adam replied. "I'm Honey Baker," she introduced herself. "Honey?" Adam asked. She nodded. "I hate to think what you went through in school," Adam chuckled. I'm Adam. Adam Spicer. So now that you're all wet from my attack dog, what do you think about a nice hot coffee? The house is just up here. He waved in the direction of his home. She paused for a moment, then said, Okay, but you'll have to help carry my gear. It took me nearly an hour to get it all down here from the car. She quickly removed the large camera lens and stored it in a box, followed shortly by the camera body. She folded the heavy tripod and handed it to him, then grabbed the box with the camera and lens. Okay, Adam, lead on. I hope it's not too far. Nope, maybe a couple 100 meters, Adam replied. You can't see it from the road because of the trees. He set off, heading up the bank and onto the path, not looking back. Either she could make it or not. It wasn't his problem. They arrived at the house in a few minutes. She wasn't far behind. Teddy was off on his adventures again, but he'd show up for breakfast soon enough. How do you take your coffee? Adam asked, placing the tripod on the stoop beside the door. Black is good, thank you, she replied, setting the case down beside the tripod. She looked at the view from the front of the house and added, Adam, this is simply gorgeous. I'd love to wake up to this every day. Whoever placed this house here really had an eye for the view. Adam handed her a mug of coffee. Thank you. It took quite a while to decide on the placement. I wanted to see this every day, as you say. You built this home? She asked, a note of wonder in her voice, as if building houses was something very unusual. Yes, Adam replied. It took a couple of years, and I'm still not completely done with everything I want, but to all intents and purposes, it's finished now. How did you find the spot for your pictures? It's not like you can see that view from the road. No, you're right. I actually started to set up by the road, but then I saw that spot near the creek through my binoculars. It looked like it might be perfect, but I couldn't wait because the sun was starting to come up. Truth be told, I didn't know anyone lived out here. I've never seen cars or trucks coming or going in all the times I've driven by. How long have you been here? Adam asked. Going on 5 years, she answered. My parents owned the land but never developed it. They used to come up here and camp down near the creek, not too far from where you were. I inherited the land when they passed, and I decided I'd rather live out here than in town. Long story short, I moved an old trailer out here while I was building, and I moved into the house about 3 years ago. My friends and I held a burn the trailer party when I moved in, Adam said. It was old and not worth anything, but it had served its purpose. He stopped talking and enjoyed the sounds of the surrounding woods as he gazed toward the distant horizon. She sat quietly, as if she didn't want to disturb the peace and stillness. He looked over and saw that the bruise on her face was larger than he'd originally thought. He also noticed that she wore a wedding ring. If she was aware of his glance, she gave no sign. You know, she said, breaking the silence, I'd love to have a place like this. It's so peaceful and quiet. She paused long enough to finish her coffee and then glanced at her watch. Oh God, I've got to get going. He'll kill me if his breakfast is late. By he, you mean Mr. Honeybaker? Adam asked, already sure of the answer. Yeah, the biggest mistake of my life, she said, with almost total panic in her voice. But I guess I'm stuck with him. Adam gestured at the large bruise on her face. His handiwork? Yeah, she said, her voice low. He didn't like something the other night. Usually it doesn't show. She quickly added, Look, Adam, could you take me up to my car? I can't be late. Her voice trembled, and she looked like she might start crying. Adam picked up the tripod and camera box and led her over to his truck. He had her at her car, up on the road, in just a couple of minutes. Adam, thank you really. I know I shouldn't have trespassed, she said, her eyes filled with gratitude. Honey, don't worry about it. Look, if you want to take photos up here, just call and ask, Adam said, handing her a business card and writing his home phone number on the back. I often work from home, but if there's no answer, try my office. Thank you, Adam, for everything, she said, and with that, she drove off in a cloud of dust toward town. There are few things Adam really hates in this world. Liars, cheats, and those who hurt others top the list. Just hearing about her being used as a punching bag made him want to help her. The fact that she was easy on the eyes didn't hurt either. She wasn't very tall, maybe 5 feet 3 inches and 115 pounds. But without the bruise, She had very pleasant features. Not a supermodel, but quite pretty. He really couldn't see much of her figure, since she was bundled up in a jacket and jeans, but he suspected that her appearance was just as pleasant all around. Adam returned to the house, fired up his computer, and grabbed a coffee while it booted. He logged on and saw there were a few things to take care of for clients. It only took about an hour. Afterward, he decided to see what he could find out about Honey Baker. It turned out that, while not world-renowned, she was quite well known locally for her work, especially landscapes, as she had mentioned. She had had several shows in the Vancouver area and had lived there until recently. She and her husband had moved to Melville, allegedly for him to pursue career opportunities. Yeah, I'm the Queen of England too, Adam thought. That usually meant someone was hiding something, like a less than honorable relationship. Maybe it had something to do with the abuse Honey had mentioned. Adam continued to look into John Baker, and the more he found, the less he liked. Honey raced into town from where Adam had dropped her off at her car. She knew that the smallest thing could set John off, and she'd get hurt again. She trembled as she pulled into the driveway of their neat two-story house and rushed inside. Phew, he's not up yet, she thought as she hurried to start the coffee and prepare his breakfast. As she worked, she thought about the man she had just met. I bet he doesn't get off on hurting people. Seems like a nice guy. Why isn't he married? Various thoughts ran through her head as she finished getting breakfast ready for her husband. She knew John was up from the sound of the toilet flushing and the shower starting. John Baker was a creature of habit. He expected, no, demanded, that his meals be prepared on time, that the house be cleaned and maintained perfectly, and that the yard be the best in the neighborhood. Honey was glad that at least he contracted the yard work out. She didn't think she could handle that along with all the housework. John sat at the dining table exactly at 7:45, as he did every morning. Honey served his coffee, then juice, then breakfast, always in that order, without variation. He finished his breakfast with a grunt, which she had long since stopped trying to interpret. As long as he was gone and left her in peace, she cleaned up the dishes and the kitchen, then went upstairs to change and start her day. The bruise on her face would fade in a day or so, but she was worried about the pain in her side where he had punched her in the ribs. She was afraid that something might be broken but was reluctant to go to the family doctor, who just happened to be a friend of her husband, John Baker. Funny, she couldn't remember it hurting like this when she was out getting photos this morning. Maybe carrying all that equipment down from the car aggravated whatever injury she had suffered. She managed to get some rest, then drove into town to pick up groceries and run a few errands. As she walked, she noticed a sign for Spicer Computer Consultants in the window of an office above the supermarket. I wonder if that's the Adam I ran into this morning, she thought. Must be. There can't be two computer consultants with that name in this town. She parked her car and looked at the card he had given her. Yes, it was his office. After running her errands, she returned home to the same routine that John had literally beaten into her. She didn't know why she stayed with him, but didn't know what to do if she left. She wasn't aware of it, but it was the typical pattern of someone caught in an abusive relationship and help was available. She just didn't know how to find it. Her biggest problem, at least in Melville, was that she didn't really know anyone. By nature, she was quiet and shy, so she didn't easily socialize. Her husband never took her to corporate functions, always saying she was ill or indisposed or offering some other weak excuse. Usually, it meant he had beaten her again, and the bruises couldn't be covered by clothing or makeup. Adam finished his research into Honey and John Baker just around lunch. He really didn't like what he had found out about John. Beyond being abusive, it seemed like he might be a liar, cheat, and thief. As far as Adam was concerned, that was enough justification to look deeper into his affairs, business and otherwise. Years of work in the computer industry had given him the skills to do just that. After making himself lunch, Adam fed Teddy, who promptly went to sleep on the deck in the sunshine. If what Adam initially suspected about John Baker was true, it seemed he had just moved the headquarters for his shady dealings from Vancouver to Melville. Adam sat quietly, mapping out in his mind how he would uncover the scheme. He had to be careful. His research showed that Baker had friends and victims in high places. He couldn't just barge through the front door and start hurling accusations. Adam also thought about Honey. While he had learned a great deal about her professional life, he could find no real details about her personal life, other than she was married to John Baker. He didn't believe she knew about her husband's questionable business practices. The look in her eyes as she had sped off this morning had been one of absolute fear, if not terror. John wouldn't involve his wife in his affairs. She was merely another victim of his. Adam checked her website and saw contact information for Honey. He thought about reaching out to her, telling her that she didn't have to stay with John and should leave him as soon as possible. He added her email to his contacts but didn't message her right away. Meanwhile, Honey was cleaning up after preparing lunch for her husband. He seemed somewhat distracted, though she would never ask and really didn't care why. She returned to her computer and began editing the photos she had taken that morning. She was certain her husband hadn't known she had even left the house, let alone gone driving the back roads so early in the morning. More likely, he didn't really care as long as his routine wasn't disrupted. They hadn't shared a bed for years, and their intimacy had long since stopped. Honey had understood long ago that she and John had never had a loving relationship. It just wasn't in his nature to care about anyone but himself. Thank God they didn't have any children. Though she wasn't feeling well, Honey remembered that she needed to pick up some dry cleaning for John. He would be home after work to change and would likely attend some event or other. She didn't care, as long as he didn't try to drag her along, which she knew wouldn't happen. At least not tonight. The bruise on her cheek was too noticeable. She drove into town again and parked almost in the same spot she had in the morning. The cleaners were in the same complex as the supermarket and several other businesses. She was just approaching the entry to the cleaners when she collapsed. Adam had just arrived in the parking lot and was parking in his reserved spot when he saw the woman fall to the ground. He had no idea who it was at first, but he quickly ran over to her while dialing 911 on his cell phone. Another passerby arrived almost at the same time. Adam quickly removed his jacket, folded it into a makeshift pillow, and placed it under her head. The other man removed his overcoat and laid it over her. It was then that Adam recognized her. The ambulance arrived quickly, and soon Honey was on her way to the hospital. Adam figured he'd have an hour or two before he could see her, so he continued on to his office and took care of what needed to be done, though his thoughts were never far from the woman he had just met. He found John Baker's business number and left a message with his secretary that his wife had collapsed and had been taken to the hospital. The secretary sounded uninterested, but promised to pass the message on when Baker was available. Adam drove to the hospital and, after some persuasion, learned from a nurse that Honey had been admitted with severe bruising and a couple of broken ribs. She would undergo further tests to see if the ribs had caused any additional issues. Initially, they weren't going to give him any information, but once he mentioned that he was the one who had called the ambulance, the nurse relented. Adam soon found himself standing at the doorway of a private room, looking in to see if she was awake. "How are you feeling?" he asked quietly. "Sore all over," she replied weakly. "What happened? Why are you here?" "I saw you collapse on the sidewalk and called for an ambulance. That's all I know. They brought you here." "The nurse says you have severe bruising and broken ribs," Adam said gently. She nodded without saying anything, tears beginning to well up and roll down her face. "God, he'll kill me. He wants his suit for tonight." "Well, you aren't going anywhere. Can I get it for you?" "Just tell me where to deliver it," Adam offered, trying to reassure her. She thanked him profusely and gave him an address in the business district. Adam didn't let on that he already knew the address, as well as their home address. "No worries, I'll get the suit and drop it off. I already called his office to let him know you're in the hospital." "Oh my God, he'll kill me for sure," she said, her voice tinged with panic. "He said if I ever went to a hospital—" "Look, don't worry about it for now," Adam interrupted. "You didn't go to the hospital. You collapsed, and they brought you here. There are at least two of us who saw what happened. I'll straighten it out for you." Honey seemed almost hysterical. "He'll come in and drag me out of here." Adam pushed the call button for the attending nurse. "Look, she's scared that her husband will come and drag her out of here. Is there anything you can do?" "I don't know," the nurse replied. "I'll talk to the doctor." "Good, thank you," Adam said as the nurse left them alone again. He turned back to Honey. "Look, I don't know you, and you don't know me, but you can't go back to that guy. Is there somewhere you can go when you get out of here? Somewhere safe?" She shook her head. "No, we just moved here. I don't know anyone. All my family's back east. I don't even have many friends in Vancouver. They were all his, not mine. Okay, just relax and get better. I'll see what I can do, Adam said gently. Please, Adam, don't get mixed up in this. He can really hurt you, Honey warned. Well, I just love it when bullies get what's coming to them. Don't worry about me, Adam replied. He left her lying in the bed, looking small, scared, and alone. Once outside, he got into his truck and made a call on his cell phone. Josh, it's me, Adam. Are you at the detachment? I need to talk to you for a second. I need your help and some of your muscle. Be there in a few. Adam pulled into the visitors' parking at the police detachment. His friend, Sergeant Josh Green, was the detachment commander. He quickly found himself sitting across the desk from Josh as he explained the situation. It's classic battered woman syndrome, Adam said. They're so abused and brainwashed that, in some strange way, they think they deserve the beating. I hate this kind of thing, he said vehemently. Me too, but for now we need her safe in the hospital. Do you still have those two auxiliary members, Mutt and Jeff? Josh laughed. You mean Townsend and Wright? Yeah, I see what you're thinking. Maybe a little hospital duty. Just hang on. I'll find out if they're around and available. Josh went to the outer office and spoke to his secretary. Joe will find out and let me know if they're available. I'll get them and a couple of others to sit outside her room. Meanwhile, let me get hold of the women's shelter. Josh, I don't think she'll go to a shelter. If she goes into hiding, he'll find her somehow. Maybe it's time me and Teddy had a house guest. I'll talk to her. Meanwhile, I promised to run an errand for her. Jill poked her head into the office and advised with a smile that Mutt and Jeff would be in shortly. Thank you, Jill, Josh said. He turned to Adam. I'll get them to take shifts sitting outside her door at the hospital. We'll just tell the hospital there have been some threats against her life. Thanks, Josh. I appreciate it. Tell Mutt and Jeff that too. It means a lot to me. Adam left the detachment and went to the mall to pick up the dry cleaning for Honey. The owners knew him, so there was no problem with him picking it up. It was almost 5 o'clock, the time Honey said her husband usually came home, so he drove over to the house instead of to Baker's office. He got there just before Baker showed up. As Baker pulled into his driveway, Adam got out of his truck and walked over to him. Your wife is in the hospital. She asked me to get this to you. Stupid woman can't do anything right, Baker muttered. Who are you? I saw her collapse on the sidewalk in town and called the ambulance. They're keeping her at least for tonight. Name's Adam Spicer. Okay, what do I owe you? Nothing. The cleaners said they put it on your bill. I mean for delivering it. Not a thing. Just doing a favor is all. Well, okay. I've got a function with the mayor tonight. With that, he dismissed Adam and went into the house. Adam returned to his truck, deep in thought. It's going to be a real pleasure taking this guy down, he thought. He drove back to the hospital, where Mutt had the first shift outside Mrs. Baker's room. His instructions were concise. Honey Baker was in protective custody and wouldn't be moved without police approval. Adam poked his head in and saw that she was sleeping. Okay, Mutt, thanks for doing this. The lady needs all the help we can give her. Auxiliary Constable Townsend, Mutt to his friends, replied his friend. The boss told us what's going on. Let's just say that anyone who tries to move her without the boss's say-so is going to have a very bad day. We don't like wife-beaters either. Adam wasn't worried. Mutt stood about 63 and weighed a very solid 250 pounds. Adam had seen him in action and wasn't concerned about anyone giving him trouble. His partner, Jeff, aka Auxiliary Constable Wright, wasn't much smaller at 61 and around 230 pounds. Together, they were auxiliary constables, but a formidable and intimidating force when necessary. Adam went home to feed Teddy and start plotting the downfall of John Baker. He called his sister and asked if she could come and visit for a couple of weeks. He might have a house guest who needed female help. Adam, what have you gotten into this time? Asked Sheila, his older sister. It's a long story, sis. Do you know who Honey Baker is? She's some kind of artist or something, isn't she? Or something. She's a photographer and, from what I've been able to find out, a pretty good one. She's in trouble, and I might have her staying here when she gets out of the hospital. Her husband beat her up, and she has a couple of broken ribs along with bruising and other injuries. Adam sipped his glass of wine, thinking back to his encounter with Honey that morning. How the hell did she carry that equipment down from the highway if she had broken ribs? Another mystery to solve. He became aware that Sheila was talking again. So, when you know for sure if she's staying with you and that big hound of yours, let me know. I can be there in a couple of days. Thanks, sis. Hi to Jack and the kids. I hope it's short term, but you never know. You be good, Adam. Be sure to let me know one way or the other. We will. Thanks again, sis. Love you. He ended the call, not worried about having enough room in the house. He had 5 bedrooms in 2 different wings. The hallways from the bedrooms all led to the central pod that contained the kitchen, dining room, living room, and office. Sheila and Honey could use the west wing, where there were 3 bedrooms. His master bedroom was in the east wing, taking up at least half of it, leaving enough space for the 5th, smaller bedroom. It had been a while since any women had spent time in the house. Adam didn't seem to have much luck with prospective partners. He had tried and been hurt 3 times, so in essence, he stopped looking. The first had been Nancy. She moved in with him shortly after the house was finished. They both knew that it wouldn't last, and she had made it clear that she was just looking for a seasonal arrangement. She moved in at the beginning of October and left at the start of the following April. Adam had known this would happen, but he was still sad to see her go. She had been warm, caring, and easy to get along with. There had been a few tears on both sides, but she was off on her next adventure. Adam assured her that she was welcome if she ever came back. The second mistake had been Janice. She caught Adam on the rebound shortly after Nancy left. Adam didn't realize how high maintenance Janice was until she began criticizing how much time he spent working. If he had to work late or overnight, the complaints when he got home were unbearable. She couldn't understand that in order to buy the things she wanted, he needed to earn money. She left one December afternoon while he was at work, and frankly, Adam was glad to see her go. Her attitude of constant demands was tiring. He ran into her a couple of times afterward, and she was always with her latest companion, barely acknowledging his presence. He later learned that she had gone through several relationships, married and single, only caring about the money they could spend on her. She had apparently left town after an affair with a town official became public. The last had been Megan. After Janice, Adam had kept to himself for about a year before meeting Megan at a dinner party at a friend's house. She was friendly with his buddy's wife, and they seemed to hit it off. He had her out to the house a few times, and they got along well. Their relationship seemed to be going in the right direction, and Megan had shown that she could be a good homemaker as well. Adam began to think she might be the one. He invited her to move in about 6 months after they met. For the first couple of months, everything was fine. They settled in, and Megan seemed to enjoy the rural lifestyle, away from the busyness of town. Then, Adam began to notice changes. It was subtle at first. He caught her in a few lies about where she had been and what she had been doing. It was nothing major, but the feeling of unease started to return. One January afternoon, Adam had told Megan that he had to go out of town overnight on business. This happened occasionally, so she didn't make a big deal about it. He packed his overnight bag, kissed her goodbye, and headed into town. But just as he arrived at his office, his customer called to postpone their meeting for a week. Adam finished what he needed to do at the office and decided to surprise Megan by coming back home early. When he arrived at the property, he noticed an unfamiliar vehicle parked in front of the garage. Adam parked his truck, apparently without being heard, and went into the house, already dreading what he might find. Megan and her companion were in his bed, not yet fully dressed, but clearly involved with each other. They were so focused on what they were doing that they didn't notice Adam standing in the doorway. He silently withdrew to plan his next course of action. His driveway was unpaved and fairly steep in sections, which wasn't a problem for him since he had a good four-wheel drive truck. However, it would be a problem for Megan's companion, who was driving a standard 2-door, 2-wheel drive sedan. Adam decided to make it a little more difficult for them. Since Megan would be leaving with her companion and only with what she had originally brought, he figured he'd make sure the car wouldn't leave easily. Adam went up to the entrance of the driveway, where he kept the loader. He fired it up and dumped load after load of snow onto the driveway, making it impassable unless you had a good four-wheel drive vehicle or the loader itself. Then he went back to the house, used his truck to push the car into the snowbank along the driveway, making sure it was well and truly stuck. There were a few scrapes on the car, but Adam was sure they wouldn't be noticed immediately. At least today, the couple would have other things on their minds. With that part of his plan complete, Adam parked his truck in the garage, locked it up, and made sure the shed where his tools were kept was also locked. He then entered the house, making the usual amount of noise as he walked in. All he could hear were sounds from the bedroom. He walked down the hall, stood in the doorway of the bedroom, and they still hadn't noticed he was home. Adam went to his den and grabbed a small digital camera, then returned to the bedroom and began taking photos. Megan suddenly realized he was there and screamed. The man with her fumbled to get away from the bed, expecting Adam to react angrily. "You two have exactly 15 minutes to get your stuff together and leave," Adam said, his voice flat and unemotional, making the situation even more intimidating. Megan began crying, and Adam's voice remained steady as he continued, "It's not what you think. You're with another man in my bed. Get your things and get out." The man with Megan was cowering in the corner, afraid to move. Adam turned away and walked toward the kitchen. 14 minutes and 45 seconds, he said over his shoulder, keeping his voice calm and controlled. "Megan, please," she began, but quickly realized he wasn't listening. She started to gather her clothes and dress, as did the man with her. "Oh my God, he's crazy. He'll kill us," the man said. "Get your stuff," Adam replied, his tone unwavering. "I hope you make it out." "Please, we can talk about this," Megan said, starting to panic. She wasn't sure how she could fit everything into the suitcases she had brought. She had a lot more to leave within when she arrived. Adam didn't respond. He grabbed the suitcase sitting on the floor and walked down the hall to the door, opened it, and threw the suitcase out into the snow. He went back into the house and got a large garbage bag. Wordlessly, he went to the bedroom where Megan was still trying to close the second suitcase and started stuffing her clothes and things into the garbage bag. Once full, it followed the suitcase out into the snow. Adam took a moment to notice that George really was stuck, but was still trying to get the car out of the snowbank. Too bad, they could walk to town. He wasn't about to help them. Adam went back inside, grabbed Megan by the arm, and dragged her down the hall to the door. He threw her coat at her and kicked her boots towards her. He went back to the bedroom and got the second suitcase, throwing it outside to join the rest of her belongings in the snow. Megan was crying openly now. No one had ever held her accountable like this before. She had always used her charm and personality to get out of bad situations. But this was a rude awakening, especially at the worst possible time. As soon as she went through the door, Adam slammed it shut and double-locked it. He went around and made sure all the other doors and windows were locked as well. Then, reality started to set in. He sat down at the kitchen table, put his head in his hands, and decided that he was better off on his own. No more romantic entanglements. A while later, there was a pounding on the door. Adam looked and saw Megan standing there. He opened the door and, as flatly as he could, said, "Get the hell off my property now." "Adam, we're stuck. Would you call a tow truck, please?" "Too bad. There's no cell service. We can't call." Megan was crying, almost hysterical. "Well, then you better start walking, because if that car is on my property tomorrow, it's getting seized and impounded." "Adam, please. You wouldn't. You don't want to find out. If it's there in the morning, it's gone," Adam said, closing and locking the door again. Megan tried the door and then made her way back to the car. "George, he won't help. We'll have to walk until we get cell service. It's about 5 miles toward town or 4 up the hill," Megan said. "Jesus, I don't have the gear for walking. These are just commuter boots, only good for riding around in," George replied. "You sure he won't help?" "For God's sake, George, would you?" Megan started, but her frustration was evident. She began walking up the driveway. "Are you coming? It'll be dark in about an hour." Reality was setting in for Megan. She was starting to realize that she had made a huge mistake. Adam's demeanor scared her. The next morning, Adam drove his truck up to where the front-end loader was parked. It was clear that a tow truck had managed to get the car to the top of the driveway. He didn't know how or when, but he hoped it cost them a lot of money. Half-heartedly, he cleared the drive and went into town to the office to try and get some work done. His mind wasn't really on it, so he returned home after running a few errands. There were several messages from Megan, each apologizing and saying it was a mistake. He erased them. One message from George said that Adam would get his eventually. That message was erased as well. Adam wasn't too worried about George or anything he might do. Adam went into the bedroom, stripped the bed, and took all the sheets and blankets to the laundry. He threw the mattress into the back of his truck to take it to the dump. He wasn't going to sleep on a mattress that had been involved in such a situation. He found a few items Megan had left behind and also threw them in the garbage. It was just after Megan left that Teddy arrived and adopted Adam. Adam had been in town and saw a display for the SPCA in the mall near his office. On a hunch, he talked to the woman looking after it, and long story short, a shaggy, ragamuffin dog joined Adam on his property. Teddy readily took to Adam and his new home in no time. The dog explored almost all of it, even though it was snow-covered. His goofy grin told Adam all he needed to know. Teddy was home. Adam arrived at the hospital just after lunch. Jeff, Auxiliary Constable Wright, was on duty at the door and reported that all was well. No one had come to visit Honey except for the medical staff. Adam went into the room and found Honey awake. "How are you feeling?" he asked. She looked so frail and small there in the bed. Not too bad, as long as I don't laugh," she replied, her voice stronger than yesterday. "Okay, we'll try not to tell any bad jokes." He looked at her with genuine concern. "Look, you can't go back to him. At best, you'll just stay a human punching bag. At worst, he'll kill you slowly." Adam tried to keep the worry out of his voice while emphasizing that he was, in fact, worried about the possible outcomes. "I know," Honey started sobbing. "I know, but I don't know what to do. I've got nowhere to go." "Well, once the doctor says you're well enough, we'll take you out to my place. My sister said she'd come down and help look after you. Then we'll decide where we go from there. The first thing is to get you away from him. You'll be safe, and he probably wouldn't be able to find you there either." "I can't," she started to say. "Yes, you can and will. Once you're healed, we'll worry about the future. Your immediate job is to get well enough to leave here. No arguments." "Well, okay, but only till I'm healed." Honey was still crying quietly, wondering why this big, gentle man would help her. "Look, a friend of mine is going to come in and talk to you. He's the policeman in charge of the detachment here. He wants to find out more about your husband and what's been happening." Adam said gently. "Oh God, I couldn't. I can't talk to the police. He'll kill me for sure. Look, you just don't know it yet, but you're done with him. My sister and I will make sure you don't have to be afraid of him again. My friend Josh will be in to talk to you later today. Just answer his questions honestly and let him take it from there." "Well, okay, I guess." She hesitated, afraid to ask, "Can you be here too?" "If you want. Now, get some rest. I have to get hold of my sister and get her out here." Josh patted her shoulder and left the room. Jeff was just returning from the cafeteria with a cup of coffee. "Look, Jeff." She's scared out of her mind of her old man. "Do you know this guy?" Jeff shook his head. "No. If he tries anything, or even tries to get in to see her, you have permission to use whatever force necessary to keep him away. I already talked to Josh. He doesn't want to know." "No worries, Adam. Unless it's a doctor or nurse, they ain't getting in there. I haven't had to deal with a wife-beater for a while." "It would be a pleasure," Jeff said. His easy demeanor belied his toughness. "Me and Mud have a bet on which one of us gets to tussle with him first." Adam knew that Honey would be safe. He called his sister from his office, only to be told by her husband, Jack, that she was already on the way and should be at his place in 2 days. He grinned, knowing that she knew him too well. Later that afternoon, he was sitting in the hospital room as Josh gently questioned Honey about the abuse she'd received, starting with the most recent. The nurse who was there with them alternated between turning pale and flushed as she reacted to the answers. Adam felt a cold rage building in him. If it was the last thing he did, he would make sure that Baker paid for this. He began formulating a plan even as the questioning continued. Finally, the questioning was over, and Josh took his recorder back to the office for transcription. Adam patted Honey on the shoulder and told her to rest. "I'll be in tomorrow." He spoke briefly to the on-call physician, who assured him that Honey wouldn't be fit for release for at least another 3 days. Good, Adam thought. Sheila would arrive before that, and between them, they could get her to safety. 3 days later, Adam and Sheila pulled into the hospital parking lot and parked in the loading area. They used Sheila's car since climbing in and out of Adam's big pickup would almost be impossible for Honey. They went in to find Honey dressed and waiting for them. After introducing the two women, Adam got a wheelchair from the nurse's desk to wheel Honey out to the car. One of the nurses came and took over, and Adam followed them out of the hospital. He stopped to talk to Mutt. "I can't thank you guys enough. You went above and beyond. How many of you looked after this?" "There were 4 of us, me, Jeff, and a couple of others. We all volunteered when we heard what had happened to her," Mutt replied. "Mutt, can you give me a list of the names and their home addresses? I want to make sure they're properly thanked." "We'll do that, Adam. I'll email them as soon as I check in at the detachment." "Thanks, Mutt. And thanks to the other guys, too. Let them know." Mutt nodded his head, and Adam hurried to catch up with the women, who were almost out the door. He helped Honey into the back seat of his sister's car and jumped into the passenger seat. There was no way Sheila would let him drive her car. Sheila drove out to the property and started down the driveway. "Let me out here. I'll make sure nobody can follow us down unless they're walking." "They'll walk down to the house," Adam said. Sheila stopped the car. "Going to put the loader across the entrance?" "You got it. Go ahead. I'll walk down. Won't be long." Sheila continued down the drive, and Adam started up the loader. With some back and forth jiggling, he managed to almost completely block the entrance to the driveway. Anyone coming down would be doing it on foot. Sheila was just getting all of Honey's stuff out of the car when Adam arrived. "Look, we're going to have to go to her place and get clothes and stuff," Adam said. "Yeah, I was thinking of that. Maybe what we'll do is take both vehicles into town. I'll make sure Baker is in his office, and you and Honey can go to the house and get whatever she needs and wants. We've got the room, so we can get all her things at once." "Sounds like a plan. I'll talk to Honey." I put her in the middle bedroom. It's nearest the kitchen. Sheila set off to discuss the matter with Honey. Adam put the coffee on and called down the hall to see if they wanted coffee or tea. The answer came back, coffee. Once made, he put 3 mugs of coffee on a tray, loaded with creamer and sugar, and went down to the bedroom where Honey was laying on the bed, quietly talking with Sheila. He placed the tray on the dresser and sat down in a spare chair with his own coffee. "Honey, this is your room as long as you need it or want to leave. I mean it. I don't know what's going to happen with your husband, but you can't go back to him. Sheila and I agree we won't let that happen. I feel like I'm imposing." "You're doing so much," Honey replied. "Why are you doing this for me?" Sheila jumped in. "You're worth every bit of it. We're helping because you need help, and nobody should go through what you did. There's no excuse for that at all. We're here to help you get better, physically and mentally. I'm a registered psychologist, and me and Adam will work with you to get you through this." "But you're giving up so much just for me," Honey said, tears in her eyes. "We're not giving up anything," Sheila said. "Adam has the time and space. I'm on hiatus, so I'm not officially practicing right now. My husband and kids know why I'm here and are good with it. We're here to help, and you will accept it. And anyway, where are you going to go?" Honey was quiet for a few moments. "Okay, I guess I'm in your hands. Still, I don't know if I'll ever be able to repay you." Adam piped up, "You getting well will be payment enough. That's your job. Your only job. Let us look after the rest." Adam stood up and started to leave. "I'll leave you two to get acquainted, sis. Make some plans for tomorrow afternoon. We'll need Honey to go and pick out what she wants and needs. I'll look after Baker. I'll be in the den office. I'm going to start ruining his coming days." Honey looked worried. "You're not going to hurt him?" "Oh no, with a phony like that, the only hurt he understands is monetary. That and my friend Josh going over to chat about spousal abuse should serve to start. He's done for, like dinner. He just doesn't know it yet. What are you going to do? He knows some influential people who could make things difficult for you. The best part about being out here and doing what I do is that these powerful people have very few ways of getting at me. When I expose Baker for the fraud he is, they'll be scrambling to distance themselves from him. Don't worry, I'll handle it. You just relax and let Sheila help you with that." He left the bedroom and went to his office. The great thing about arrogant people like Baker is that they think they're smarter, better, and richer, and that nobody can do anything to them. Adam logged onto his computer and started doing some research. Soon, He was able to find Baker's internet provider and his IP address. A few minutes with a special program he had developed got him logged into Baker's office computer. Good enough. He could wait until evening when Baker would likely be out, schmoozing at some function with the well-to-do and the wannabes. There was no real rush. He could actually wait until after Josh invited Baker downtown for an interview. It would be interesting to observe that one. The next day, using both his truck and Sheila's car, the three of them drove into town. The ladies would go to the house to get Honey's belongings as soon as Adam confirmed that Baker was in his office and not likely to move. Adam arrived at the office building just in time to see Baker being seated in the back of a police car. Well, for sure, the women wouldn't be interrupted anytime soon. He called Sheila on her cell to explain what he had seen. The two women drove to the house and, using the keys Honey still had, entered and began packing things she would need. Adam arrived shortly afterward and started placing some of the bigger items like computers and other essentials into his truck. He couldn't help but chuckle when he saw Honey and Sheila carrying out some of the prints that had been on the walls of the house. He drove back and parked down the street from Baker's office. Almost 2 hours after the police had picked him up, Adam saw Josh drive up in an unmarked cruiser and let Baker off. He did not look like a happy man. Josh drove past Adam and waved at him. Apparently the interview had gone well, at least from the police's point of view. Adam returned the wave and drove back to the house. The women were just finishing loading the car with Honey's belongings. He waited down the street as the two women left and headed back to his place. He didn't wait long. Baker came roaring down the street and pulled into his driveway, his secretary in the passenger seat. Adam couldn't help but think what an arrogant person he was. As far as he knew, his wife was in the hospital, and here he was with someone else by his side. It was going to be a pleasure bringing him down. Later that evening, after having a quiet dinner, the women retired to the living room to watch a movie. Adam went into his home office and got to work. Baker, being a creature of habit, had left the office computers on, maybe so he could access them from home. Adam logged on and began searching through the computer, looking for passwords and banking information. He struck pay dirt after a relatively short search. Not only did he uncover Baker's local banking information and passwords to all the accounts, but he also discovered where Baker was transferring the stolen money from his alleged investors. From what he could see, Baker regularly checked the bank in the Cayman Islands on Fridays, with funds being transferred into the account Monday mornings. It was a somewhat irregular pattern, but it had been consistent for at least 5 months. He then compiled and printed a list of the investors that Baker had defrauded, along with their email addresses. His plan was taking shape. He wanted to not only ruin Baker but also ensure that the investors were able to recover at least some of their inevitable losses. He also wanted to make sure that Honey had enough funds to support herself for the foreseeable future. She at least deserved that. John Baker wasn't having a good week. First, the police had hauled him in for questioning about the abuse of Honey. He thought he might have talked his way out of it, but he wasn't sure. He would need to get Honey to speak to the police, but the problem now was finding her. He learned she had been admitted to the hospital and had just been released the day before he was questioned. The police thought she had gone home, aided by a young woman they assumed was his secretary. He knew it wasn't her secretary, but someone else helping her. At this moment, he checked the house. He was so absorbed in his own issues that he didn't notice much, until he realized that almost everything belonging to his wife was gone. Panicking, he ran upstairs to check the bedroom and closets, but there was nothing of hers left. In a mix of anger and confusion, he went back into the living room, where he had left his secretary. He wasn't sure who to be more upset with, but he couldn't focus his anger properly. The secretary, seeing his frustration, quickly grabbed her purse and fled. Not willing to be caught in the middle of his breakdown, she walked down the street to a nearby store and called a cab to the police station. Meanwhile, Baker, more upset than ever, had planned to attend a mayor's function that evening with his secretary, hoping to network with potential new investors. But now, none of the women he had relied on in the past were available, and he found himself heading to the event alone. He couldn't stop thinking about his wife and where she had gone. Meanwhile, Adam had set up a throwaway email account to contact Baker's investors, urging them to look more closely at their relationship with him and ask pointed questions about the so-called audited statements he had provided. Adam also accessed Baker's Cayman Islands account and changed the sign-in credentials, cutting off Baker's access to his own funds. Baker would no longer be able to deposit or withdraw funds from the account. Satisfied for the time being, Adam made sure only he could access the Cayman account, then shut down his computer. Since Baker was attending some function that evening and most of his investors were probably there as well, Adam didn't expect things to spiral out of control immediately. However, he was unaware that the chain of events had already begun, starting with one investor who had been having second thoughts. Adam's email had made an impact, and the wheels were turning. The next morning, Adam checked on the two women and found their bedroom doors closed. Left alone with his thoughts, he grabbed a beer and stepped out onto the patio, sitting down in a deck chair. Teddy padded over and laid his large head on Adam's knee, looking up as if asking for a scratch. Adam began to think through his next moves for Baker. He wanted to ruin him, not just financially, but completely. Adam then accessed the federal no-fly list and added Baker's name using his real details, his full name, date of birth, and passport number. He fabricated a reason for inclusion, claiming Baker was suspected of supporting a terrorist organization, which would prevent him from leaving the country if things got worse. Next, Adam contacted Baker's credit card issuers and reported his cards as stolen, using the personal information he had gathered from Baker's computer. Feeling confident that everything was in place, Adam opened an account at a different bank in the Cayman Islands under a false name. He planned to move the funds from Baker's now inaccessible account to this one, using part of the money to at least partially repay what Baker had stolen. Finally, Adam set up an account in Honey's name at another bank, where part of the money would go. Even 10% of what Baker had taken would be a good start for Honey, no matter what she decided to do next. Adam decided to wait until evening to start transferring the money, but he set up his computer to monitor Baker's Cayman Islands account for any activity or attempted logins. Soon, he began receiving return emails in his throwaway account, asking how he knew Baker was stealing and what proof he had. Adam had expected these questions and, in his reply, sent a copy of the report that investors had received, showing the real status of their investment accounts. Having finished for the day, Adam joined the women on the patio, where they were enjoying coffee and the view, though not necessarily in that order. He had decided it was best not to mention what he had accomplished to Honey just yet. If things went wrong, the fewer people who knew, the better. "Good morning, ladies. Beautiful day, huh?" he greeted them. "Adam, you were working early," replied Sheila. "Putting in some overtime?" "Good morning, Adam." "Yes, it's beautiful and the view is gorgeous," said Honey. "Just had some things to take care of. All done now, so I can relax for the rest of the day," Adam replied. "Maybe you'll go down to the creek and do a little fishing. See if there's any trout that want to come for dinner." "I agree about the view, though," Honey said, "but I think we had this conversation a few days ago." Adam hadn't fished the creek in months, even though there were some good-sized fish in it. He sat back in his chair, enjoying the view and the coffee. He knew Sheila was dying to know what his next move with Baker would be, but she wasn't going to ask with Honey around. Time enough to tell them, Adam thought. Honey was just on her first full day of healing, and she'd be staying for a while. "A few days ago, okay. You too, what's going on?" Sheila sounded not only curious but exasperated. "Honey, do you want to tell her, or should I?" Adam asked, wanting to give Honey the chance to explain first. "Oh no, Adam, you tell her. They'll just pipe up if you miss something," Honey giggled. "Okay, sis, erase what happened a few days ago, and why we had this conversation about the view." Adam began to explain everything that had occurred recently, starting from when he caught Honey trespassing and telling everything he knew up to the events of the previous night, while carefully omitting details about the accounts, credit cards, and no-fly list. "So, Honey is now staying here, hiding from John Baker. I have plans for Mr. Baker, which you two don't want to know about, at least not yet," Adam continued. "Are you sure you want to do that?" Sheila asked, but Adam cut her off. "I'm not saying anything. Trust me, if you don't know. You can't be made to tell if this thing goes south. I don't think it will, but you never know." Honey gave him a long look. "Adam, be careful. John has lots of powerful friends." "I'll be careful," Adam reassured her, "but I wonder if they'll still be friends when things start to get intense. He might find that all of a sudden, his friends won't take his calls." "Oh, to be a fly on the wall," he laughed. Anyway, ladies, I'm off to do some work around here. They'll leave Teddy to look after you. He's a big softy until somebody tries to mess with people or things he considers his. I won't be far away, just puttering in the shed and the garage. True enough, Teddy had already accepted Sheila and Honey as part of his pack. About an hour later, Adam was in the garage when Sheila called out to him. Adam, there's a John Baker on the phone. Can you take it, or should I take a message? Be right there, Adam replied, stopping what he was doing and heading back to the house. He had half expected the call, since Baker knew he had run an errand for Honey. Adam Spicer, Mr. Spicer, it's John Baker. Remember me? We met when you dropped off some cleaning at my place. What can I do for you? Mr. Baker, how's it going? Adam said, keeping his tone casual. It's my wife. Nobody seems to know where she is. Do you know where she is, or have you seen her? Last I knew, she was in the hospital. That must have been 3 or 4 days ago. How's she doing? Are they going to release her soon? It was quite a fall she took. No, damn it. That's why I'm calling, Baker said. She was released 2 days ago, and nobody seems to know where she went. Glad she's out, Adam responded. You sure she's not home, or visiting friends or something? I'd have no reason to see her after she got admitted. I just checked on her that one day when she said something about the cleaning, but you already know that. Yeah, I do, Baker replied. So, maybe you picked her up. Why the hell would I do that? Adam asked. I thought she was still in the hospital until you called. Well, I thought. Who answered the phone? Your wife? I'm not married. My sister is visiting from back east. Well, that's true, but he doesn't need to know that. Oh, if you do see my wife, would you let me know? Baker asked, giving Adam his phone number. I don't expect to see her or anyone else way out here, but I'll keep an eye out, Adam said. He hung up, grinning to himself. Now it starts, he thought. Adam went into his office to check his email and review the account activity for the Cayman account. He had received a few replies from worried investors, but so far, there hadn't been any attempts to log on to the Cayman bank account. He was sure that wouldn't last. After logging off, he returned to the garage to continue his work. A few minutes later, Sheila showed up. Adam, what did Baker want? She asked. Seems he can't find his wife, Adam said. I told him I hadn't seen her. That's a nice way to put it. I thought maybe that's what it was, Sheila replied. Honey's resting, so she doesn't know about the call, Adam said. She doesn't need to know yet. She needs rest and healing. She has all the time she needs to do both. Yeah, I know, Sheila agreed. But if Baker ever finds out, I'm not going to worry too much about that until it happens, Adam said. I am, however, going to set up a few surprises for any unwelcome visitors. Sheila raised an eyebrow. I don't even want to ask. I'll make some fresh coffee. Want some? Sure, I'll be there in a few minutes, Sheila replied. Adam went back to completing the small project he had started. The days went by with only Adam or Sheila leaving the property to get supplies, and they never left together. Honey showed no desire to leave the comfort of the large home. Though physically she was much better, mentally, she had hardly started to heal. Sheila decided that she was well enough to start working on that part of her healing. Without seeming to push, Sheila began to help Honey with the emotional aspect of her recovery. It would be a long and difficult journey, but she hoped Honey was ready for it. Adam had transferred all the money out of Baker's account into the one he had opened, then transferred about 10% of it to the account he had set up for Honey. She wasn't aware of it, but the account held just under $1 million. Baker had been a prolific and successful thief. The high point of John Baker's week turned out to be being taken to the police detachment for questioning. He couldn't find his wife, he'd fired his secretary, and now the phones were ringing off the hook from investors wondering what was going on with the money they had invested with him. There were so many calls that he set the office phone to go straight to the answering machine. As he had promised the first few callers, he would issue dividend checks in the hopes that this would at least buy him some time to get things together. The one call he couldn't ignore was from the officials of the small stock exchange where his investment company was listed. They wanted to know about all the phone calls they were getting regarding his account and what he planned to do to bring the value of the account up to the minimum required to maintain his listing on the exchange. He made the usual assurances that funds were forthcoming immediately, if not sooner. The exchange officials were satisfied, for now. Damn, he shouldn't have fired that secretary. She could have handled the dividend checks and mailed them in a couple of hours. He'd have to do it by hand since he had never learned how to use that particular program on the company computer. He set to work, pausing only long enough to ensure that the front door to his office was locked. He needed no interruptions to get this done. The phone continued to ring, more investors with more questions. Baker finished his task late that afternoon and managed to get the envelopes in the mail before the final pickup for the day. He needed a good stiff drink and headed home to complete that very task. He could check his Cayman account from home. He'd done that often enough. Much to his surprise, he was unable to log on. None of the access codes worked, nor did his passwords, old or new. There must be some kind of problem, he thought. He'd call the bank in the morning from his office to get it straightened out. Baker didn't sleep well that night. He kept having dreams about investors wanting their money back and holding him hostage until they got it. He was still tired when he headed into the office. He set the phone to answer instead of going straight to the answering machine. Before he could call his bank in the Cayman Islands, the first of many phone calls for the day started. The checks he had issued had bounced. NSF. What the hell? He called his bank and tried to talk to the manager, but she was unavailable. An account manager would call him back within a few minutes. While waiting, he tried calling the bank in the Cayman Islands. The manager was in a conference at the moment and couldn't be disturbed. Finally, the account manager of his local bank called him back. No, there were no funds in his business account, and no, he couldn't use the previously arranged line of credit. That account had been frozen, and the bank was in the process of issuing a demand for payment. He had 30 days to arrange repayment in full. Stunned, Baker sat back in his office chair behind his big, expensive desk and wondered just what on earth was going on. He decided to take an early lunch and try to get back to the Cayman Bank later. He went to his favorite restaurant, where he was well known and well regarded. Imagine his surprise when his credit card was refused. So was the next, and the next. He barely had enough cash to cover the check. He returned to his office to find one of his investors camped out at the door. Evan Jones was not a happy man. He had met John Baker at a social function. Baker had a beautiful young woman on his arm and exuded charm and wealth. Long story short, Jones had bought into the story Baker was selling and decided to invest about half of his portfolio with Baker's investment company. Mr. Jones hadn't gotten as far as he had in life by being a fool. When he first received the mysterious email a couple of days ago, Evan Jones started doing some checking on his own. No, the chartered accountants ostensibly auditing Baker's company were not only not auditing it, they had never even heard of it. Of course, Baker hadn't returned his phone call yesterday, certainly 2 red flags. Then he had received a dividend check from Baker, only to have payment refused for non-sufficient funds, the 3rd red flag. Now, Mr. Jones wasn't just worried. He was furious. Furious not only at Baker, who more than deserved it, but also at himself for going against his gut feeling and falling for the deceptive charm. Now, he was sitting outside Baker's office, waiting for his return. Had waited as long as he had to. Finally, John Baker showed up. He tried to hide his misgivings about having one of his more recent investors waiting outside his office. He invited Mr. Jones in, and, in a way that had helped him sell millions of dollars worth of fake investments, reassured the reluctant Mr. Jones that it was all a big misunderstanding. Only later did Jones realize that Baker hadn't answered his pointed questions about the auditors. Meanwhile, as soon as Evan Jones had left, Baker again locked the office and called the bank in the Cayman Islands. The manager, initially reluctant to speak with him, eventually did. Baker wondered what his bank had done to deserve having him close his account and transfer all the money out of it. Of course, this was news to him, and he hung up the phone, realizing that maybe, just maybe, everything he had worked toward, namely enriching himself at others' expense, had been for nothing. He began to realize he was flat broke, except for the house he now lived in, and it had a sizable mortgage on it. He was a very worried and scared man as he locked his office and drove home in his leased Mercedes. Somehow, he thought his missing wife had to have something to do with all of this. But how? She knew nothing about his business affairs. He had made sure of that. Anyway, she almost needed his help to balance her checkbook every month. No, it had to be something else. Someone else? But who? Not his investors. Surely they got their dividend checks regularly and had no problem. except for today. He made a mental note to call into the bank and speak with the manager personally. The manager, being a woman, he was sure he could get her to see his way. It had always worked before. Baker couldn't believe that the police were sitting in his driveway waiting for him. As soon as he stepped out of his Mercedes, he was handcuffed and placed in the back of the police cruiser. He was read his rights by the passenger as the car sped down the street toward the police detachment. To his surprise, it didn't stop there but continued on to the courthouse. There, Baker was led, still in handcuffs behind his back, into a judge's chambers, where sat the judge behind his imposing desk, a Crown Special Prosecutor, and, much to his surprise, his own lawyer. He was relieved to find that this had nothing to do with Honey. His feeling of relief was short-lived when the Special Crown Prosecutor laid out the charges. He was under investigation for fraud and theft, numerous counts on each charge. Other charges were being filed as they were meeting. By the time the prosecutor finished speaking, Baker was in a cold sweat. Outwardly composed and feigning outrage at this treatment, he was realizing that his world, as he knew it, was coming to an end. Bond would be $1 million, and Baker would have to surrender his passport. By taking a second mortgage on his home, Baker was able to post bond. His lawyer assured him that they would be able to successfully fight the charges and, with a handshake, left Baker standing on the steps of the courthouse with no way home except to walk. Baker would deliver the passport to the court tomorrow since it was in his safe deposit box with the bank. This, of course, was a blatant lie. Baker was going to try and run for it tonight. As he walked home, after all, it was only about 2 miles, he planned his escape. Thankfully, he'd had the foresight to keep an emergency stash of money at home, together with his passport. He'd book an immediate flight to South America as soon as he got home. From there, he could get to the Cayman Islands to find out what the manager had been talking about. He had never closed the account and, despite what he had been told, believed he still had nearly $10 million on deposit there. He arrived home just in time to see his Mercedes being loaded onto a flatbed trailer. The driver, used to being mistreated by all sorts of people, let Baker rant, then calmly handed him a copy of the seizure order. His lease payment had not been made on time. If he wanted to discuss it, he could call the dealership. The driver was just doing his job. Slowly, Baker trudged up the drive, unlocking the doors somewhat unsteadily, and entered his house. Of course, Honey wasn't there. He hadn't seen her since the day she was admitted to the hospital. He was certain she had nothing to do with the events of the last couple of days. She simply didn't have the capacity for it. He poured a stiff scotch and called Air Canada, trying to book an immediate flight to South America. They had none available until 2 days from now. However, American and United both flew daily to all major cities in South America, so maybe he could book with them. He called the toll-free number for American. If he could get to Seattle, they had a flight leaving for Chile at 1 a.m. the next morning. He had about 9 hours to get to Seattle in time for that flight. It was too far to drive, and anyway, he didn't have a car. He was able to book a flight on Alaska Airlines to Seattle, which would get him there in plenty of time to catch his flight to Chile. Somewhat relieved that finally, things seemed to be going his way, Baker went into his home office and opened the safe containing a stash of $200,000, his passport, and other important papers. Relieved that everything was still there, he went into the bedroom and packed a small bag with the essentials for a couple of days. Anything else he needed, he could buy at his destination. He called a taxi and was informed that the fare to Kona International Airport would be approximately $150, but they could have a car at his door in 20 minutes. He assured the dispatcher that this was satisfactory, poured another scotch, and sat to wait for the taxi for what he thought was the final time. John Baker locked the front door of his home, and since he was traveling light, the cabbie didn't need to help him with his bag. He settled into the back seat, resigned to spending at least an hour and a half getting to the airport. At least they wouldn't hit rush hour. He'd have plenty of time to catch his flight to Seattle. Almost 5 hours later, John Baker was unlocking the door to the house he thought he'd never see again. Try as he might, he was unable to talk his way off the no-fly list and onto an airplane. Yes, that was him. Yes, that was his birthday and passport number, but he had never supported the Tamil Tigers. He wasn't even sure who they were. The airport officials were as adamant as they were apologetic. There was no way Mr. Baker would be catching a flight to Seattle or anywhere else that evening. The matter would have to be straightened out in Ottawa, and that could take a few days. Admitting defeat, Baker arranged for another taxi back to Melville. Adam, Sheila, and Honey knew nothing of what was going on with John Baker. Adam knew about the bank accounts and other things, but not the details of what Baker was going through. It had only been a couple of days, but he could sense that Honey was responding to Sheila's treatment. At least she no longer sounded or acted like a doormat. A week after Honey had been hidden away from John Baker, Adam received a call from his friend Josh. "Adam, I'm trying to get hold of Honey Baker. Do you know where she is?" Josh asked. "As a matter of fact, I do," Adam replied. "She's sitting on my patio drinking coffee with my sister at this very moment." Josh seemed more serious than usual. "I've got some news for Mrs. Baker. Can I come out and see her? Or would she prefer to come into the detachment?" "Well, I think she'd prefer that you come out here. How about we throw in a lunch? You can talk to her then. Deal?" "I'll see you in a while," Adam said, ending the call. Well, it would either be welcome news or a disaster. It depended on how she felt about what her husband had done. Josh pulled up to the house just as Adam was leaving the garage. "See, you made it. Guess you public servants will do anything for free food," Adam laughed. "Yeah, well, you know how our poor salaries are," Josh laughed in return. "Look, before we go in, John Baker was found in his house this morning. He's been dead for 2 or 3 days. The coroner is still investigating, but it looks like he took an overdose of sleeping pills washed down with half a bottle of scotch." "Oh, where does that leave her?" Adam asked. "Well, she's a widow. Other than that, it looks like everything will have to be handled by a receiver. It's quite a mess. I just found out he was under investigation for numerous counts of fraud and theft. They had a special prosecutor handling the investigation. From what little they told me, he was looking at serious time. And he's got a bunch of very angry investors, his victims, screaming for justice. Some very important people are thoroughly upset and embarrassed." "Holy, I wasn't aware. Do you think she had anything to do with it?" "No, there's no indication she was involved at all. Fortunately, Baker didn't leave a note or anything, just a whole bunch of debt. He had just remortgaged his house to post bond for the fraud and theft charges. Come on, the women are out on the patio. I guess that's as good a place as any to break this to her. Just remember, she's had a pretty bad time of it. Sheila's treatments are just starting to work. Hope this doesn't set her back." Adam led Josh through the house and out onto the patio. After introductions, Josh told Honey why he was there and gave her as much information as he could, which wasn't much. More would come out in the coming days, but for now, as the next of kin, she had to decide what to do with the body after the coroner finished his investigation to confirm it was a suicide. Josh would call Honey when it was all confirmed, to discuss it in the next day or so. During the lunch that followed, Honey didn't say or eat much, almost as if trying to digest the news the policeman had delivered. She felt neither sorrow nor relief, just a sort of numbness that comes with receiving what would usually be considered bad news. Her problem was, she didn't think it was all that bad. Though she wanted away from Baker entirely, she hadn't wanted him dead. It would take her a while to come to terms with it. As Josh was preparing to leave, Adam asked, "What now, Josh? I mean with Honey. She obviously had nothing to do with his death or any of his business dealings. Where does she stand in all this?" Josh had sort of been prepared for the question, expecting that it would be Honey who asked. "I really don't know. As far as I know, about an hour ago, the prosecutor was going to assign the whole file to an administrator to sort out the mess. I know at some point they'll want to interview her." He turned to Honey. "Honey, are you going to stay here? Is this where you can be contacted?" Adam answered for her. "She'll be here. I've already told her she can stay as long as she needs or wants to. She's still recovering from the hospital." Josh nodded as he walked out to his cruiser. "Okay, I'll let the powers that be know. They'll advise you when they want to talk to her. You'll bring her in?" Adam nodded. "Whenever they need, or they could come out here." Josh thanked his friend and drove off back into town. Adam returned to the patio where the women sat waiting. Honey spoke for the first time in quite a while. "You know, I never expected that would ever happen. I thought maybe I'd just get away and never hear his name again. I don't know what he was up to, but if they had a special prosecutor..." Honey trailed off. "I don't know all the details," Adam answered, "but he was running what's called a Ponzi scheme. Do you know what that is?" She shook her head. Okay, what he does, or what they do, is make promises of huge returns on any money someone invests in his or their company. Usually, some kind of investment company supposedly trading in stocks, bonds, that sort of thing. Simplified, what happens is that new investors' money is used to pay the promised returns to older investors. Baker took it one step further and stole from his investors as well, hiding the money in a bank in the Cayman Islands. Okay, so that's the fraud and theft Josh talked about, Sheila said. Pretty much. Baker's problem began when I was able to log onto his business computer. Being the arrogant guy that he was, he thought his security measures were adequate. They weren't. Long story short, I opened new accounts in different banks and took all his money back from him. It's sitting in the accounts now. So, you have started it? Honey asked. In a manner of speaking, Adam replied. I prefer that this doesn't go any further than the three of us for now, but I opened two accounts, one for the money that Baker stole and a second one. What I hope to do is anonymously advise the administrator with the details of the accounts and where and how to retrieve the money. There's almost $9 million. The investors won't recoup everything, but they'll get some of their money back eventually. You mentioned a second account. What's that about? Sheila asked, still trying to digest what her brother had done. Is stealing from a thief illegal? Adam replied, his tone casual. I wasn't about to worry about it. I just covered my tracks well, and I didn't obtain any of the money for myself. There is one, Adam said. I promise full disclosure when the time comes. Until then, we never had this conversation, right? Both women nodded in agreement. Honey was really worried, scared even, about what was going on. She thought that somehow she could be held responsible for all this mess. She and Sheila talked it over after Josh had returned to the garage. In the end, Honey agreed that it was useless to worry since there was so much they didn't know. Together, they decided to do nothing and let Adam handle all the talking, except for when it came to a formal interview with Honey. Sheila told her that either she or Adam, or both, would sit in with her. Sheila, being a psychologist, knew she could testify to Honey's mental state, and if they did need a lawyer, Adam was as good as any in the area. They hoped it wouldn't come to that. A couple of weeks went by. The three of them had settled into a routine that varied little. Adam handled his business mostly from home anyway, so he spent most days in his office. He would occasionally go to town and work from there or visit a client. He kept his overnight trips to a minimum. Honey had John Baker's remains cremated, and the ashes were scattered in the area of the cemetery set aside for that purpose. Only the undertaker was present, no one else. Sheila continued to work with Honey. They had a counseling session in the morning, then went for a walk around the property, always accompanied by Teddy. After lunch and a short rest, there would be another session. Now that the fear of John Baker was eliminated, Honey responded well and quickly to treatment. Sheila would hate to leave, but knew she had to get back to her own home. She missed Jack and her kids. Telephone and Skype didn't substitute for actually being there. They understood why she had to be there, but it was time to go. Adam offered to pay for her airfare, but Sheila preferred to drive. It would only take her about 3 days. Tears flowed freely as Sheila took her leave. She promised Honey that she would be available if needed for the expected interviews. Adam made it clear that if she had to come back, she would fly and he would pay. No argument. Sheila hugged Honey and whispered, "Take care of my baby brother. He really cares for you, and I know you care for him. Let nature take its course," Sheila said, her voice soft. Honey hugged her back without saying anything, the look on her face enough to convey everything. Adam walked her out to her car. "Is there anything along the lines of what you were doing that I can help Honey with?" "No, I think I've done most of what I can do. The rest is up to her. She can call me anytime if she has questions. It's just a matter of her doing the work we talked about." "Okay, sis, I'll take your word for it. I don't know if I can ever repay you for this. You really went above and beyond. Way above." Adam opened the car door for Sheila and gave her a big hug. "Just look after Honey and yourself. She cares for you, you know, really cares for you. Just be good to her." Sheila returned the hug, got into her car, and drove off, hardly able to see the road through her tears. Not long after Sheila left, Honey was asked to come into town for interviews, first with the special prosecutor, and then with the administrator assigned to straighten out the mess John Baker had left behind. Adam assured her he would stay with her, and if they wouldn't let him, Head get his lawyer to sit in. The interviews went easier than expected. The prosecutor quickly determined that Honey knew nothing about John Baker's business affairs. She had only attended a few functions with him, and most of the time, he was accompanied by his secretary or some other woman. Yes, she knew about his affairs, and yes, he had beaten her, but she had only just begun to realize over the past few weeks, working with Sheila, that there was something she could have done. She certainly didn't know it at the time. The interview ended with the assurance that Honey would stay at Adam's property for the time being. She felt safe there. The interview with the administrator went much the same way. He hadn't been able to discover what had happened to all the money Baker had stolen. He traced it to a bank in the Cayman Islands, but the account had been closed, and the money moved. The bank had no knowledge of where the missing money had been deposited, and Baker certainly wasn't able to tell them. He acknowledged that Honey had no knowledge whatsoever of her late husband's business affairs and certainly hadn't profited from them. He advised that the house had been overmortgaged and the bank was in the process of foreclosing. If she wanted, Honey could talk to the bank about retrieving anything she needed from the house. Since she and Sheila had already taken everything that Honey wanted, there was nothing left that had any interest for her. The bank could have the house and all its contents. He thanked Honey for coming in and said that, as far as he was concerned, she was in the clear and probably wouldn't need to be interviewed again. As Adam and Honey left the office, Adam picked up the administrator's business card. Good. It had his business email on it. So, Honey, what about getting some lunch now that you're a free woman? Adam laughed. I'd love some. But first, can we go to the bank? I want to get an account in my own name. I don't know if there's anything left in that joint account. But if there is, I want to move it. For the first time in a long while, Honey sounded assertive. Okay, let's walk. It's only a few blocks. Honey took his arm, and together they walked down to the bank. They were able to see the manager right away, who assisted Honey since she was the sole beneficiary. There wasn't really any problem. The necessary papers had already been provided to the bank. However, there was one question. What about the safe deposit box? Honey had no idea what the manager was talking about. She didn't know about any safe deposit box and was certain she had never seen a key for one. Perhaps it was in the safe in her husband's office at the house. The manager explained that the safe was found open and empty when the police began their investigation into his death. The keys couldn't be located in the house or Baker's downtown office. The box would have to be drilled. But no, Honey didn't need to be there for that. They would advise her when it had been done, and any contents would be kept in safekeeping until she could claim them. Satisfied that their business with the bank was finished, Honey and Adam walked up the street to a small, family-owned diner to get some lunch. They settled into a booth and, after giving their orders to the young server, Honey said, "You know, Adam, this whole thing seems so surreal. It's almost as if I'm in a dream, and I don't know what I would have done if it wasn't for you and Sheila. I don't think I would have survived it." Adam thought for a minute before answering. "Look, you getting well is all the thanks I really need or want. Baker was a liar, a thief, and a bully. I didn't know you from Adam, but I hate, absolutely loathe, people like him. I wanted to ruin him in the worst way, but I didn't want him dead. I wanted him to suffer for a long, long time. Like most bullies, he turned out to be a coward in the end. But you and Sheila, you've done so much. I don't think I can ever repay you, either of you." Honey replied, "You've both done so much." "Well, I don't think I've done all that much, unless giving you a place to live until you get straightened out counts. You needed help, simple as that." Honey wasn't convinced but let it drop. "Okay, but I'm buying lunch. As you know, the bank let me have all the money in the checking account, nearly $5,000. At least I can buy lunch. Then I guess I should start looking for an apartment." "Okay, you buy lunch. As for the apartment, I said you could stay with me as long as you needed or wanted to." "Yes, but now I have some money. I don't want to be a burden anymore." $5,000 won't get you far, Adam said flatly. "That's maybe a few months' rent and some groceries. Look, you're not a burden. Why not worry about accommodations after we're sure the dust has settled? I'm fairly certain that as far as you're concerned, it's all over. But until you have it in writing, you never know." "I suppose you're right," Honey replied, resigned to making the best of what could be a bad situation. And she didn't really want to leave Adam's place. She felt safe and comfortable, and she was liking this gentle giant more and more each day. That night, Adam sent an email to the administrator using his untraceable account. In it, he gave the account access information and the approximate total on deposit in the account he had set up when taking what he didn't think of as stealing the money from Baker. The administrator might suspect who had sent the email, but he really didn't have the resources to confirm it. At least the investors would get something back. Not much, but something. The second account he had opened for Honey was, of course, not mentioned at all. Days went by. Adam was busy with his consulting business, and Honey had basically taken over the household chores, telling Adam in no uncertain terms that if she was staying there, she was contributing. After arguing about it for a few minutes, Adam resigned himself when Honey mentioned bringing in the big gun, aka his sister Sheila. He admitted defeat. A few days after they had been to the bank, the manager called to advise that the safety deposit box had been opened and Honey should come in and review the contents. Adam took her to the bank that afternoon, where the manager handed her a couple of large envelopes full of documents she didn't even know what they represented. She asked both the manager and Adam about them. They looked like investment certificates of some kind. The three of them decided that the administrator of Baker's affairs should deal with them, and arrangements were made for the bank to get the documents to him. It was nearly 2 weeks after Adam had taken Honey into town when he found he'd have to take an overnight trip, and it might extend into 2 nights. Even with Teddy around, Honey didn't feel comfortable being in the big house all by herself. She and Adam talked it over, and it was decided that she'd come with him and sort of make a mini vacation out of it. He had already booked his favorite resort, one that allowed animals, since Teddy was part of the team and would keep Honey company during the day while Adam was working. They packed up their gear, and with Teddy curled up on a blanket in the back of the truck, they headed off to Mville, a drive that would normally take the better part of 5 hours. It would be the first time Honey had been away from Melville for any length of time since she and John had moved there, and her first time ever in Mville. She was excited and looking forward to it, something she hadn't experienced in a long time. They chattered away as the miles rolled behind them, making a couple of rest stops for themselves and Teddy, or when Adam would point out something of interest along the way. They arrived in the early afternoon. Adam tried to arrange a second attached unit to his motel suite, only to find that everything was booked up in town due to some kind of festival. The only reason Head had been able to get a unit at short notice was because he was a good, well-established customer. He and Honey would just have to share. Adam opened the door to the unit. It was well-furnished and had a separate bedroom with a queen-sized bed and all the usual furnishings. The sitting room had a work desk with internet connections, as well as the entertainment center, a sofa, an easy chair, and assorted coffee and side tables. Honey, you take the bedroom. I can sleep on the sofa. It pulls out into a bed as well, said Adam as they began to get settled in. No, Adam, I can't do that. You take the bed and I'll take the sofa. It's only right. Well, that doesn't make any sense since I'll be getting up and leaving for work. I'd only disturb you getting ready, making coffee, and stuff. You take the bed. Honey gave a small smile and admitted defeat. She would have the bed, Adam the sofa, and Teddy would have his usual spot on the floor near the door. That settled, they relaxed until dinner. Neither wanted anything fancy and found that the restaurant attached to the resort would be more than adequate. After dinner, they went for a walk, Teddy running ahead and exploring old territory since He'd been there many times. Honey was thoroughly enjoying just being with this gentle giant, her knight in shining armor, as she put it. She was very attracted to him, and becoming more so every day. Her problem was that she didn't know if the attraction was mutual. Adam was having similar thoughts. He was falling in love with this beautiful, troubled woman. He valued her friendship and companionship and didn't want to do anything to jeopardize that. He knew she had feelings for him, Sheila had told him, but wasn't sure if it was for him or out of a sense of obligation for what he had done for her. He really hoped it wasn't the latter. Eventually, they returned to the resort and settled in for the evening. Adam wouldn't normally bother with the TV, but he felt that maybe Honey would want to watch a movie. He settled on a movie he'd heard about but never seen. Honey, I'm going to change. Is there anything in the fridge to drink? She asked. I don't know. Usually, there's some half bottles of wine or soft drinks. I'll check. Adam opened the small fridge. We have Coke, white wine, red wine, or water, he called out. Could I have some white wine? please?" She replied. "I'll be right out." Adam poured 2 glasses of the Pinot Grigio and settled onto the sofa. Honey joined him moments later, dressed in her PJs, a housecoat, and fuzzy pink bunny slippers Adam hadn't seen before. She never wore them in the house, and he burst out laughing. "I've never seen those on a grown woman." He continued laughing so hard that he had to put the drinks down. She settled beside him on the sofa and punched his arm, giggling. "You leave my pink bunnies alone. They're warm and comfortable and I like them." Still laughing, Adam handed her a glass of wine. "To friends," he raised his glass to clink the rim of hers. "To friends and to guardian angels." "I don't think he'll ever forget you or Sheila," she replied. Adam didn't say anything, just gave her a long, considering look and settled back onto the sofa. Honey snuggled up beside him, tucking her feet underneath her in the way that only women seemed to be able. She rested her head against his shoulder and sighed contentedly. For the first time in a long time, she felt almost happy. "Adam, why haven't you tried to kiss me?" she asked. "Don't you like me? Aren't I attractive enough?" Adam, caught by surprise by the question, thought for a few seconds before answering. "I've been attracted to you since that first day down by the creek when I caught you trespassing. I value your friendship and love having you in the house with us, me and Teddy. I didn't and don't want to jeopardize that." He took a sip of wine and continued. "I know you're in some way attracted to me. Sheila told me, but I hope it's not because of what I did, getting you away from Baker. I hope it's just for me being me, but I don't know." She hadn't really thought of it that way. While she appreciated everything that had been done for her, the thought that her feelings for him might be out of a sense of obligation hadn't occurred to her. "Adam, I hadn't thought of it that way. I think I'm falling in love with you, not because of what you did for me. You're one of the kindest, most unpretentious men I've ever met." She reached up and pulled his head down toward hers. "I've been dreading the day when I have to leave. This is more of a home than I think I've ever had. I told you from the get-go, you can stay as long as you need or until you want to leave, your call, and I meant it, every word." He gently kissed her back. "You've gone through a really bad time. I didn't want to rush anything, but I don't want you to leave either, until you want to. Am I making sense to you?" "I'm not sure I am to me." Honey slowly pulled away from him and sat her wine glass on the side table, then launched herself into his arms. "You thickhead. For a smart guy, you can be pretty dumb sometimes. I just told you I didn't want to leave, that I was dreading the day I would have to." She wrapped her arms tightly around his neck. He had to put his wine down and then wrapped his arms around her. They stayed that way for some time, not moving or talking. Adam broke the silence. "Does that mean you're staying on the sofa with me tonight?" He couldn't see that he was grinning. Honey giggled. "Well, I could, but wouldn't it be better if we shared the bed? I'm sure it's more comfortable." She gave him a long, lingering kiss. "Definitely sharing the bed is the way to go. Adam, I'm not sure about making love, but I just want to be held by you while we sleep. Can we do that?" "Of course, sweetheart. I promise no pressure, but I'd better change into something other than my jeans." He released her and stood up. "I'll just be a couple of minutes. I'll be waiting for you in bed." "Hurry," she said. Adam changed into his normal sleepwear, sweats, and a t-shirt, and joined Honey in the bedroom. "Which side? What side of the bed do you prefer?" Left, I guess." "Yes, left. Nobody's ever asked me that before." "Good, you get left. Now shove over. You're hogging my side of the bed." Adam laughed as he pulled the covers back and climbed into bed. "I hope you're not wearing your fuzzy bunnies," he joked. She giggled, not saying a word, and turned her back to him, moving back until they were spooned together. He wasn't sure what to do with his free arm until she took his hand in hers and pulled it around her. Contentedly, she sighed. "Why did this take so long?" Adam asked quietly. "I guess we're both a bit hesitant. We've both been hurt too many times before." "No more, for sure. No more." Honey drifted off to sleep, feeling secure in the arms of the man she had come to love. Morning came too early. Adam woke up to find that during the night, their positions had shifted. His back was now to Honey, and she was holding onto him gently. He carefully removed her arm, not wanting to disturb her, but needing to get up. He had work to do. He brewed the coffee and took a shower, shaving as the aroma of the coffee filled the air. Honey remained asleep, a small smile on her face, softly snoring. Adam drank his coffee and gathered his things. He was meeting a client for breakfast, part of his usual routine. Quietly, he went into the bedroom and kissed Honey. "See you later, sweetheart. One of us has to go to work." Honey reached up, wrapping her arms around his neck, and gave him a long, tender kiss. "That's better. That'll have to do us till later." Reluctantly, he left her to sleep and went to work. The next night followed the same peaceful pattern, just snuggling together for sleep. Adam could sense Honey's hesitance, and he was content to let her move at her own pace. The fact they had gotten this far was more than he had hoped for. When she was ready, they would take the next step. He could wait. On the morning of the third day away from home, they woke up early. Adam was eager to return home, but Honey didn't mind either way as long as she was with him. Teddy, too, was content as long as he was with his people. They didn't dawdle on the way home, making it in just under 5 hours. After a quick coffee, Adam explained that he needed to go to the office for a couple of hours to finish up some work. What he didn't tell Honey was that he was also planning to check in with the prosecutor and the administrator to make sure Honey was truly in the clear and that no further action would be taken against her. He didn't want her to carry that uncertainty. At the courthouse, Adam managed to see the special prosecutor without an appointment. He explained the situation, and the prosecutor quickly reassured him that there was no reason to pursue any action against Honey. The entire file had already been turned over to the administrator, who would send Honey a letter confirming this, using Adam's address. Adam then visited the administrator's office, which was not far from his own. His conversation with the administrator was more complicated. They were still trying to account for the $30 million that had been invested with Baker. Some of it had been returned to investors as dividends, but a large portion had been squandered by Baker. There was also an account in the Cayman Islands where about $9 million had been found, though much of the remaining money had disappeared without a trace. The administrator was still working on determining how much each investor had received and how much more they were owed. When Adam left the administrator's office, he had unofficial confirmation that Honey was indeed in the clear. There was no evidence that she had profited from Baker's actions, and, in fact, it seemed likely that she had suffered indirectly. The administrator said that he expected it would take almost a year before the whole situation was cleared up. Adam made one more stop, then headed to his office. He completed the work he needed to do for his client in Ville, worked on a couple of other inquiries from clients, and then prepared to lock up. He decided to call Sheila from the office instead of home. "Hi, sis, how are you?" "Adam, we were just talking about you. What's up? How's Honey?" Adam could tell his sister was curious that he was calling from the office and not home. "Just wanted to check in. Honey is fine. She's working on all that stuff you gave her. Says it's like having homework for school. I talked to the prosecutor. He's going to send a letter to Honey, pretty much exonerating her. The administrator says it'll take about a year, but he thinks Honey's in the clear. He hasn't found anything showing she benefited from what Baker did." "Well, that's good news. I'm happy things are starting to go her way. How are you two getting on? Are you two getting close?" Sheila giggled, aware of the dual meaning. "Well, we're good, but we're not getting close like that, as you say. She's still healing, and I don't want to push it. Hell, we just kissed for the first time a couple of nights ago." "You took her to Ville?" "Yeah. I had to do some work for a client. Took me the better part of the whole day. We were there 2 nights. She didn't feel comfortable by herself for that long, even with the ferocious Teddy here, so we all went. Curiosity was killing Sheila, and she asked, and nothing else happened? We just slept together, just snuggling and sleeping. We're still figuring out that we have feelings for each other. I just hope she doesn't feel that way just because of what I've supposedly done for her. I'd hate for that to be the reason. That's not why you helped her." Adam was trying not to sound worried. "Adam, don't worry about that. I don't think her mind works that way. Remember, I talked with her for a long time. The feelings she has for you are completely separate from her gratitude for what you've done for her. She sees you as her protector, her knight in shining armor. Don't mess this up by overthinking it. Just trust your gut." Sheila knew that Adam had a tendency to overanalyze situations instead of going with his instincts. "You sure about all this?" Adam sounded worried, maybe a bit scared. "Listen, little brother, she's probably very unsure of herself. You have to make the first move if you want this relationship to go forward. Remember, she's been knocked down for so long, she doesn't know what being treated right feels like. You're probably the best thing that's happened to her in a long, long time. Okay, sis. I'll take your word for it this time. I hope you're right. I am. Remember, I do this for a living. I know how to read people. I remember. I just hope you're right. I don't want to scare her off. Just talk to her, for heaven's sake. She won't break. I already told her that if she needs help, I'm on speed dial. I've got to go. It's almost supper time. Go home and talk to her. With that, Sheila ended the call before Adam could say anything more. While Adam was busy running his errands in town, Honey was also busy preparing dinner for the two of them, and of course, for Teddy. She found a good-sized chicken in the freezer, almost the size of a small turkey. She made some stuffing and put it in the oven to go with the stuffed chicken. She decided on diced fried potatoes, fresh veggies, and a garden salad. Humming happily to herself, she continued to work, unaware of what was happening in town. Teddy didn't move far from Honey, sensing somehow that this particular member of his pack needed his protection more than Adam. He lay in the doorway of the kitchen, out of her way but keeping a watchful eye on her. Something smelled really good, and Teddy wanted to be ready for any handouts. Honey noticed his ears perk up just before she was aware that Adam's truck had just arrived. Teddy stayed where he was, wagging his tail. His pack was now complete. Everyone was home. Adam stopped outside to look up at the sky. It seemed like you could almost reach up and grab a star. They were so bright. He loved nights like this, even though the air was quite cool. Shaking his head as if to clear it, he went inside the house. Wow, something smells good. You've been busy, he called out as he closed the door behind him. Well, I thought it only fair to cook dinner since you've been working, and anyway, it gave me something to do besides homework for Sheila, Honey said with a giggle. That I can believe, Adam laughed. Look, get your coat or a heavy jacket and come outside. You've got to see this sky. She pulled on her boots and wrapped herself in a ski jacket off of a hook near the door. Oh my God, cried Honey as her eyes adapted to the darkness. You can almost touch them. It's so beautiful. Too bad it's too cold to eat outside, she continued, letting her gaze wander across the heavens. She had never seen, or at least noticed, anything like it before. She shivered in the cold evening air. Adam put his arm around her and held her close like it was the most natural thing in the world. She made no attempt to move away. If anything, she tried to get a bit closer. They went back inside, and the baking chicken did smell good. The meal would be ready in about 20 minutes. Adam, do you want a drink or a glass of wine before dinner? The chicken isn't quite ready yet. Wine would be good. I'll get it. Do you want some, or are you allowed? He got a nice Pinot Grigio out of the fridge. I can have one glass, she said. It shouldn't affect my meds too much, but I don't want to take any chances. He poured the wine and handed her a glass. They moved into the living room and sat in comfortable silence. Honey broke the silence first. You know, Adam, I just can't figure you out. Why haven't I tried to push things forward? Why didn't I try something when we slept together? Adam nodded. Is that the reason? Honey nodded again. It's two things, trust and respect. When we shared the bed in the motel, I admit I wanted so badly to be close to you, but you weren't ready. You just wanted to be held. Remember? I know your background, what happened to you. I don't want to hurt you, and you trusted me not to. When you moved in here, I was hoping, beyond hope, that maybe, somewhere down the line, we'd develop a relationship. But I just didn't know. For all I knew, after what he'd done to you, you might turn into a man-hating feminist. She giggled at the thought, unable to picture it. That never occurred to me, she said. I knew there was at least one good man out there. The one who looked after me, took me in, protected me. Between you and Sheila, I've become a whole person again. I want so much to love the man who did all that. It's you, Adam. I know I told you I just wanted to be held those nights in the motel, she continued. But if you had wanted more, I wouldn't have pushed you away. He responded. It's called trust. I gave you my word, and when I do, I keep it. It's also respect. Respect for you as a person. You probably haven't been respected as a person for years. You need to feel that again. Let me tell you a story about how my mind works. I don't know if it will scare you off or not." She nodded for him to continue. "In my business, I deal with all kinds of people, but they all have one thing in common. They are my customers, my clients. Every business I deal with has a contract, but that's not why I deal with them the way I do. The contracts are just for lawyers and insurance agents. Every one of those deals was sealed with a handshake and my word, and I keep my word. That's why I'll drop everything if one of my customers out of town needs something done urgently. Like this last trip to Mville, my client needed help right away. I had given my word when I first took him on as a client. It's as simple as that." Honey leaned over and rested her head on his shoulder. "All that? What you just said? That's what Sheila told me too. Yes, before you ask, we talked about you. I didn't know if your feelings for me mirrored mine for you. Sheila said they did, but you'd be slow to act on them. She didn't tell me glacial," Honey giggled. "Now enough of this. Dinner is ready. Let's eat." They got up from the sofa, and she took his hand to lead him into the kitchen for dinner. Honey did eventually move, but not out of the house. She moved into the master suite with Adam. He proposed to her down near the creek where they first met, and they were married there almost a year to the day after he had first seen her. He waited another year before telling her about her bank account in the Cayman Islands. Since the money had been stolen by Baker, she didn't want it. She and Adam discussed what should be done, and since, as far as the administrator was concerned, the matter was closed, she decided to open a safe house for battered women. The money would be used to run it and support women in need until it ran out. Honey continued with her photography, securing the knowledge that she had the love and support of not only Adam but friends and acquaintances as well. She held several shows and became more well known for her work. Adam continued with his computer consulting business, expanding slowly and choosing his clients with care. He didn't want to grow to the point where he'd have to hire someone else to look after his customers. Teddy died at age 12, a good long life for a mutt. He was buried near one of his favorite trees, where he would sleep and dream under while guarding the property. Adam and Honey knew his health was failing, and after his passing, they adopted 2 dogs from the SPCA to replace him. Adam and Honey are almost sure that Teddy trained them before he passed. They took over and now share his duties, which of course means taking care of their family. Sheila and her family visit every year. Even Honey's family from back east has come a couple of times. At first, they thought the sun rose and set on John Baker, but it was only after his death that they realized how wrong they were, and they learned what Honey had endured. She has forgiven them. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.